Welcome back, everyone. I believe we are live, and it is working. We do want to apologize for the live stream that was previously frozen. The audio was working, so for any of those of you who are watching and have just now been able to tune back in, we apologize for the frozenness. And if you want to listen back, you can certainly hear the audio, and we should be good to go from now. So we thank our tech support, Drew, who is willing to get on the phone with us and help us navigate that. So thank you again for rejoining us. If anyone in the audience is still hungry, we do have food left out there, and you are more than welcome to it. Please do not hesitate to grab some food. I will now turn it over to the JCEA team. As I understand, we are going to hear a presentation on Article 18 in the collaborative work group events that have been going on throughout the fall semester. And don't forget to join the teams so that you can share your screen.
And make sure you're muted.
Okay, Anthony, do you want to get us started?
Well, welcome everybody. So we have the pleasure of kicking off this year's bargaining with special education. So first and foremost, thank you to all our specialized educators in the audience. So we appreciate your support, and we're going to share some insights from our collaborative team meetings this year. So. All right. So, I mean, we're special educators, and we always start with what are kids doing? Let's start with the GLOWs. So there are some celebrations from last year's sessions. We do now have our 3 days pay automatically added, so you don't have to track it and you don't have to submit it. So that is a huge win, and we have heard a lot of great things about that. We also were able to get an additional stipend, and that pay has really, from what we've heard, helped some people truly make ends meet during the holiday season, and so that's another win. And then the last piece is that we have been able to fill the majority of our positions. So I know this time last year, Maria and I were talking about just how many positions we still had unfilled, so that's another celebration as well, to have those positions with educators in them.
Yes, 94% of all licensed special education positions. This is not a data point that we regularly track, but I will monitor this. On a quick Google search, the nationwide special education licensed fill rate is 77%. So I was pretty happy about our percentage right now.
So just to ground ourselves into this evening's work. Last year we did put into our article that on our special education collaborative committee, we were going to work to study those caseloads, workload issues, so that we could come up with something to present that would help, again, to solve these problems that we have with burnout, retention, and recruitment, so that we can maintain providing services to our students and families, and making sure that we are solving these problems that come up and have come up in the past years of bargaining.
So we sent out a survey system-wide to our providers recently. We received 300 responses back, and these next few slides summarize what we found and themes from those responses. One of the overarching themes that I found was that there's a recognition. There's a lot of things going well, and we can do better. The system is ready to dig into some of those things. So focus on planning time. I'm going to try not to read these slides word for word, and I realize that you probably can't read them because the words are small. So I'll summarize. Focused planning time, I mean, again, there's a overwhelming feeling across the system from our teachers and providers that there is not enough time for planning and or doing the special education duties that are required of the roles. What came out in the data and also in the conversations of the collaborative committee is a desire to look at additional planning time and also define what that might be for special education providers, and perhaps exploring separating planning time from like special education time that includes assessment, evaluations, IEP writing, IEP meeting. It's like all of the extra duties. So that came out in the data collection that we have. Increased pay and compensation, that came out across the survey as well. Some of this too, you can read in the text, but it was really competitive pay, recognizing the hard to fill positions within special education, and then staff retention to keep the people that we have in our roles. Professional learning communities, you'll hear in stories here coming up that there is a desire to create professional learning communities or times to come together as a system to collaborate across roles, to align, to learn. And a lot of the data that we got was specific to learning specialists, having this desire to come together like our motor folks do centrally, like our mental health providers do, and like our speech and language pathologists do across the system. Collaboration and consistency, again, the need for more collaboration for learning specialists specifically came through the responses on this data survey. Support for new learning specialists. I will share a story here in a few minutes, just the toll that when you have a team of 2 or 3 or 4 learning specialists on a team, when you have someone brand new to the role, brand new to teaching, brand new to being in front of kids, the roles and responsibilities that our more veteran teachers take on. So there's a desire to create a support system of some sort for our new folks. Centralized support. This came out specifically for learning specialists and ECSEs. Like I was saying before, we have mechanisms for other roles, and there's a desire to see something similar for learning specialists and ECSEs. ECSEs are early childhood special education teachers, if you're wondering. This is the last slide for that data summary. Desire for role clarification. We've talked a lot about in our collaborative committee, and then it came out in this survey, just the need for clear guidelines and responsibilities for roles. ECSEs, learning specialists, it varies across the system. We heard a little bit about this last year. I anticipate hearing more about this. There's even differences with learning specialists between the elementary models and instructional models and the secondary instructional models, and what are those roles and responsibilities specific to special education teachers. There is a desire to continue to acknowledge the unique needs. Title I and the transient nature of some of those schools and the identification, the increased evaluations and initial IEPs came through that data. There's an emphasis on wanting to look at student needs over numbers when determining caseloads, and then a continued dive into center programs when considering allocations. Focus on paraeducators. This particular survey that we sent out also captured the importance of our paraeducators, how essential they are to the runnings of our schools, supporting our unique needs of students, and also the center programs. And there's a call for increased support, training, and better compensation. And then this last this last summary I thought is important. While many challenges and needs improvements are identified, the data indicates that are positive ideas and proposed solutions from our system to improve those working conditions for our special education providers in Jeffco. Okay, Anthea?
I was going to go back to stories. So can you, let me see if, yeah, there you go. Sorry, it's kind of, we might need to, I don't know, refresh. Okay, could we please have our storytellers join us at the table? So you guys will be sitting here, and then we'll go in that order. So I'd like to call up Beverly, Jennifer, Claire to the table, please. Thank you. All right.
I will pull that back up after I read my story.
Okay, yeah, I added it. Sorry about that, Maria. Thank you. And just so you guys know, we like to ground ourselves in stories, just to start with the why and what is happening in our classrooms, so that we have a better understanding when we get to the language piece and when we get to the asks, so that it's tied into why we're doing this and what the purpose is and the intent as we move into some of the language pieces later on this evening.
So I will start with sharing a story from Susanna Florum, who's a learning specialist at Iber Elementary. One of the resounding themes that came out of that survey was this need for support for our new learning specialists specifically. And her story speaks to that. My first year teaching was at South Lakewood Elementary 14 years ago, and it was a crazy year. The other learning specialist was also new, and she quit at Thanksgiving, so I was on my own for much of that year. Jeffco has always been good about creating documents to guide new teachers, but I seldom had anyone tell me where to access those documents. Similarly, I signed up for trainings when my principal or coach told me that I needed to take the trainings, but I probably missed many important ones. While I'm sure there was an assistant director at the time, I don't remember ever meeting with this person or having communication. Now that I'm on the other side of the situation, this is 14 years later, I'm a fairly seasoned teacher working with second-year teacher and a first-year teacher working on an alternative licensure. The other two teachers call me their lead teacher, although no one has officially designated me as such. The speech pathologist and I try to help the team as much as we can. Luckily, both teachers are quick learners. However, we still had to spend hours going through process with them, making checklists and other documents to aid their case management and providing curriculum resources. From time to time, we check IEPs and give feedback or front load the paperwork completion in meetings. Our team has a new assistant director who tries to respond to our questions, but is often busy. In many ways, my experience in returning to Jeffco has been a repeat of my first few years. While I have enjoyed my role as learning specialist, I often feel like I am running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get my questions answered and the work accomplished. Sometimes coworkers will refer to one of those amazing documents that Jeffco has created, and I wonder why I never knew about it before. Other times, my principal will tell me to sign up for a training, but then I see different trainings on the Jeffco SPED, specially designed professional learning, and I don't know which one to take. Last week, a coworker told me that a learning specialist is supposed to have an hour of planning instead of the 45 minutes that I've been scheduled for myself every year. Plus, we have to find time in the school day to assess students for initials and reevaluations. It always feels like I'm behind on progress monitoring, planning, the IEP paperwork, even though I'm known to stay late after school most nights. My story is not intended to complain, but to share the many reasons for more training and support from the district. I love my work, but it needs to be more efficient in order for balance in my life. I know that the new learning specialists at my school feel the same way, and we are in danger of losing great teachers who are currently overwhelmed with the many facets of our work. I'm advocating for the district to provide a mentorship program for new learning specialists or trained team leads. We also need a central evaluation team to perform academic assessments for initial IEPs. Learning specialists do not have any time scheduled during the day for testing, so assessing new students has to come out of the teaching time. I appreciate that the union is promoting solutions that are long overdue, and I hope the district will take them seriously.
Next up is Bev. Yeah, sorry. I know. Makes them suffer.
Hi. Hello. I'm Bev Armour. I'm a learning specialist at Ken Carroll Middle School. So first, I just want to really express my sincere appreciation for the recognition for the additional work, the workload that comes with the special education position. It's also incredibly helpful to have those floating days, as it allows flexibility throughout without the added burden of tracking every hour as we have before. We all face different peak periods depending on our IEPs whenever they are due. So for instance, last year mine were in September and March. However, by September, I had already used up the 3 extra gifted days of time. As a member of the district and SPED committee, I've noticed that our recent discussions on planning time, that there seems to be a lack of a disconnect about the demands that we face in special education. We often try to fit a significant amount of work into this really small plan time, and that's why I believe it's important to clarify what we're truly requesting here. Special education teachers are not simply asking for more plan time. We're asking for a dedicated time to fulfill that second, equally important part of our job. Today, I'd like to highlight the distinction between what we do during planning time and the critical work that we do during IEP case managing time. During planning time, teachers do various tasks to prepare for effective teaching and manage their classroom. For special education teachers, lesson planning is similar to that of the general education teachers, but with a little stronger focus on the diverse needs and abilities of the students with disabilities. Our goal is to provide an instruction that is accessible, engaging, and aligned with the students' individual IEP goals, while also meeting the state district academic standards. When teachers are working with students who have IEPs, it's essential that lesson plans include appropriate accommodations. We identify the learning objectives that align with the state standards, but we adapt those objectives to meet the needs of our students as well. In a co-teaching setting, special education teachers may further accommodate those objectives so that they're realistic for the students with our disabilities. We also help create the different differentiated task that they have to do, and working closely with our co-teachers, providing that scaffolding. In addition to lesson planning, special education teachers use that planning time to participate in collaboration meetings, engage in professional development, communicate with parents. We document everything in multiple places to keep track of students' progress. And yes, we all appreciate a couple minutes to go to the bathroom when we can. Now, talking about the second part of our job, beyond teaching, special education teachers are responsible for a significant amount of paperwork, testing, and collaboration to meet students' needs and comply with regulations. The most time-consuming part of the responsibility is managing the IEPs. Every student receiving special education services must have an IEP. It's the law. Every student receiving special education services, their IEP continues to outline their goals, accommodations, and services. Special education teachers are involved in writing, implementing, and regularly reviewing these plans. The IEP is also reviewed annually and ensure goals are being met and students are progressing. We take students off if they have progressed through that, and we change them up if they're not. Another key part of that role involves conducting assessments and evaluations. Every 3 years, we have to reassess everything that student needs and formally test them, see if they qualify anymore. Students are reevaluated every 3 years, but then every year we have to go through and progress monitor everything and do all of the other things that we need to see if they're still where they need to be or if we need to change things up. Special education teachers also regularly update the parents on their child's progress to see if there's any changes to the IEP, address any concerns through phone calls, emails, or meetings. Additionally, we must complete reports and compliance documents to ensure that we meet federal and state regulations, like those outlined in the Individuals with Disabilities Act, the IDA. When a student is referred for services, then we also assist with the referral forms and document previous interventions that have been attempted. While the paperwork can be time-consuming, it's essential for ensuring that the students receive the support that they need to succeed. And this is why we need dedicated time to focus on these tasks so that we can meet the needs of the students. These responsibilities come with our role as special education teachers to meet our students' needs. A lot of it is things we need to do by law, and a lot of it is we just need to do because it's the right thing to do. And also a lot of time is spent with parent work because if the parent's not happy, we have to find out why. A lot of times the parent will just not know what to do, and so we have to kind of talk them off the ledge as well. So a lot of times our job is just doing the right thing.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Jennifer.
Is it still on? Yes. I'm Jennifer Anglis. I'm a learning specialist at Ralston Valley High School. And I will say a lot has improved at my job with the new contract that was agreed upon last year at this table. Sorry. I am so thankful that I'm able to plan and collaborate with my co-teachers, and having fewer course preps is a definite improvement. The teaching part of being a special education teacher is going okay. One challenge that I still have is completing all of my case management tasks. In addition to teaching the same 5-period course load as my general education counterparts, I'm also the case manager for 25 students with disabilities of varying severity. I am not even close to the limit for Jeff Coe's caseload, by the way. For each of these 25 students, my job, as outlined in Jeff Coe's job description for my role, is to develop, implement, and support individualized practices for achieving learning outcomes for students with communication, cognitive, physical, and/or social behavioral needs based on the requirements of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This teacher will utilize evidence-based best practice and rely on frequent progress monitoring for programming adjustments. The learning specialist teacher will take a leadership role in collaboratively problem-solving interventions for students. Design and implement specialized instruction in one-on-one, small group, and large classroom settings. Work collaboratively to plan and modify curriculum, team teach with general educators, and to communicate the abilities and needs of special education students. Develop, implement, and review for appropriateness the behavioral plans for designated students. Work in conjunction with a multidisciplinary team to conduct IEP and referral meetings, conferences, and to develop a multidisciplinary approach to the educational enhancement of the student. Maintain ongoing communication with regular educators, school staff, students, and parents. All of these things take time. Just the development of an uncomplicated IEP for a student who only has 1 or 2 goals is almost 4 hours. The yearly interview that I have to do at the high school level for transition assessment, 10 to 20 minutes. I really wish I could spend longer. I need to do a classroom observation. That's 30 minutes. I need to gather data from teachers and from past files, usually about 45 minutes. Writing the draft of the IEP is 60 minutes or so. The actual IEP meeting, about 45 minutes. And then the follow-up, post-meeting edits, communication to teachers, etc., 30 minutes. Multiply this by 25. And that's just one of the bullet points of my job description. Remember also that this is only the most straightforward IEPs. Many of my students have more than 2 goals. Many have at least one related service. Sometimes meetings run long. Sometimes we need a second one. And we haven't even considered the evaluations, which can add up to another 3 hours when additional testing is needed. In any given year, this applies to about 8 or 9 of my kids. Almost all of this time has to come out of the bucket that is just generally labeled plan time. The expectation at my school is that I do not miss instructional time for this, and all IEP meetings are held within the student day and during the learning specialist's plan time. None of this should be thought of as lesson planning. It's not. It's IDEA compliance. The IEP isn't the instruction that I develop and implement. It's more akin to the curriculum landing pages that general education teachers use. I still have to unpack the standard, internalize that IEP goal, and develop instruction for the student on that goal. For all of them. This is what I should be able to use my planning time on, not paperwork. Somehow, time needs to be carved out to allow learning specialists to complete our federally mandated paperwork without stealing from our planning time.
And then Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire Lichty. I work at Swanson Elementary as a learning specialist. This is my 10th year teaching, and I've spent most of my career as a center-based teacher in an autism program. This is my first year as a learning specialist, building-based instead of center-based, and I was really excited for this opportunity and to have a different role. With that being said, I was excited about the caseload numbers that the district agreed on last year. But as with that comes the fact that we started this year with allocated 2.5 learning specialists, and we had a vacancy for the 0.5 to start the year. The other learning specialists and I split 54 kids to split at the beginning of the year, which is obviously over our caseload numbers. We understand there was a vacancy, but we have since hired someone for that 0.5 position, and I still have 23 kids on my caseload, and the other full-time learning specialist also has 23 kids on our caseload, and we are currently in the process of doing initial evaluations on 3 more kids. So it's a lot.
Thank you, Claire. And then Heather and I have a couple other stories that were sent in, and so I'll kick us off with the first one. My name is Kaylee Burdick, and I am a learning specialist at a middle school here in Jefferson County. 2 years ago, when my elementary school was closed, I made the decision to transition from a classroom teacher to a learning specialist. I love my role as a learning specialist, and I look forward to coming to work every day. I was lucky enough to be able to add my special education endorsement to my license through the partnership between Jeffco Public Schools and Aspire to teach at CU Denver. This experience has provided many opportunities for personal growth and for deepening my understanding of the student experience in Jeffco. I was confident in my skills as a classroom teacher, previously teaching 6th grade at Emory Elementary, but adding case management into the mix was very challenging. I have a very high level of respect for learning specialists in our district, especially at the secondary level, as they are planning for instruction and balancing case management all at the same time. I am currently pushing into 2 science classes and a social studies class to help meet the needs of students on my caseload. I also co-teach 2 math classes to help meet the needs of my students. Additionally, I pull small groups of students every Friday to check in and work on skills to help students progress towards their IEP goals. I am using my plan time, and let's be honest, my personal time, to plan for instruction and accommodations in my 6th grade science, 7th grade science, 7th grade social studies, 6th grade math, and my small groups. I collaborate regularly with these teachers, and attend bi-weekly PLC meetings with my math co-teacher during my planning period. All of this planning happens independently of case management and writing IEPs. I am so grateful that the district did give us 3 days to pay to account for the time we are working outside of our contract hours. I seldom have time to work on writing IEPs at school, and I have set aside time dedicated to working on them at home during the week and for a couple hours on the weekend, which we all do. Before becoming a learning specialist, I had no idea that they were expected to plan for classroom instruction, collaborate with colleagues, and case manage by updating and maintaining IEPs, all within the same amount of planning time as our general education colleagues. There really are 2 parts to being a special education teacher: planning for classroom instruction and case management. I would be very grateful for any additional time the district would be willing to give learning specialists in order to better meet the needs of our students. I love working as a learning specialist in Jeffco, and I'm grateful that the district is willing to collaborate with us and to hear our perspectives. All right, Heather.
My plan time is used to plan and gather materials for my 3 different reading times, in which I see 4 different grade levels. During one of those reading groups I plan for, I have 2 different groups which my paraprofessional assists with. Another reading group time, I have 2 different grade levels, which we have broken up into 4 different groups. During this time, another learning specialist and my para help me teach the 4 reading groups. Due to the other learning specialist's lack of experience with teaching reading, I plan for this reading group on my own and have to run through the plans with my teammates. In addition to planning reading, I also plan and gather materials for 2 different math groups. In addition to planning, I also need to find time to progress monitor goals, test students for evaluations, conduct observations for the evaluations, write annual and evaluation reports, and meet with grade level teachers, and I work with 4 different ones this year. This year has been quite busy for me as I am a team lead for our SPED team, and I am mentoring my 3 new teammates who are also learning specialists. One of them is brand new to special education, another is new to teaching, and the last one only has a couple of years under his belt and still needs a lot of support. Quite often, my plan time is used for answering questions about procedures and implementation. I tend to spend late nights and work on the weekends to complete my workload. I do appreciate the additional 3 days and not having to log them this year.
And then our final story of this evening, to whom it may concern. I am a learning specialist at a middle school in Jefferson County. I serve as our team lead and oversee the workings of our entire special education team. I am writing to express my sincere gratitude for the additional 3 days of pay allocated for completing IEP work outside of contract hours. My team felt seen by the district through this effort to provide compensation for the work that is done outside of our 40-hour work week. This recognition of time and effort required to develop comprehensive and legally compliant IEPs is greatly appreciated and demonstrates the district's commitment to supporting both educators and students with disabilities. As an educator in the classroom, my daily responsibilities include planning and delivering high-quality instruction, differentiating lessons, and ensuring that all students have access to meaningful learning experiences. This year, these responsibilities extend to 3 different classes, 2 grade levels, and running my own small groups designed to strategically meet their IEP goals. However, writing an individualized education plan, an IEP, is a fundamentally different task. It requires extensive data collection, collaboration with multiple stakeholders, adherence to legal guidelines, and the ability to craft detailed, individualized goals that address the student's specific needs. The time and cognitive load associated with IEP writing extend far beyond typical lesson planning, making additional support essential in maintaining the integrity and effectiveness of these plans. In order to meet the needs of my students and teammates, much of this IEP work is done outside of the contract hours. Your decision to provide compensation for this work not only acknowledges the complexity of special education documentation, but also reinforces the value placed on ensuring compliance and best practices for our students. I appreciate the district's willingness to recognize and address these demands placed on specialized educators, and I hope that this consideration continues as we strive to support all learners effectively. Additionally, I hope that we continue to consider how the work of special education providers differs from general education through our allocation of time to complete our essential duties. Thank you again for your leadership and support. I look forward to continuing to serve our students with these highest levels of dedication. Sincerely, Emily Fitzpatrick. And so now we're going to share interests. So we have these stories, and these stories lead us to truly the work that's about to be done. So interest being that what is driving the language changes, and also how are we going to solve the problems that we just brought to the table this evening. And so we have an interest in providing professional learning communities that allow time for our special education providers to collaborate and grow their practice.
Developing consistent practices and expectations across the district.
We have an interest in increasing dedicated time for special education providers to complete their IDEA duties without interruption.
And providing support for new special educators in the form of a mentor or team lead program.
We have an interest in exploring possible support in the form of a central evaluation team for learning specialists.
We have an interest in compensating people for the work they do outside of the 40-hour work week.
And finally, we have an interest in implementing a system that improves workload conditions for all SPED providers. And with that, all right. We have some options that we would like to present this evening to review prior to actually presenting that language. So here are our options. Maria, can you? Got it. Yeah. And it might be out of order again. I don't know if you. So options we are looking at, and you will be seeing in our draft, our initial alpha draft of language this evening, additional planning days. We had talked about monthly, quarterly, and the goal for this is to meet unique needs of those IDEA responsibilities. We also talked about reduction of extra duties, and I know we had talked about this at the table last year, but honestly, any and all time that we're taking before, after is also taking away from time that we're either helping students kind of get into their day, leave for the day, even lunch and recess sometimes are times when we have to pull kids for breaks. It can be sensory overload, but also just like taking away times when we can meet and collaborate with teachers as well as our parents and our families. Community of practice days with collaborations across the system. And so you heard in a lot of the stories this evening that we just need time to do the work that we do, but not in a vacuum, because we have a lot of people in this district, and working together could potentially help us solve some of these problems and challenges we face in our buildings. Creating a system for mentors and team leads. As you heard, we have educators who are working really hard to uplift their teammates, whether they might be a new teammate, new to their school, or just new to the district, new to the profession. We do have a need for this, especially because our jobs are so unique, and then we have that added layer of compliance. And so we need to make sure we're doing a better job of supporting them, while also thinking about how we compensate people for doing this work. Increasing our current SPED stipend is a possible solution as well, because right now we are doing a lot of work outside of our 40-hour work week, which everyone is, so do know that we honor the fact that this is not unique to SPED, but unfortunately a lot of the work we have to do, as you heard tonight, is at night, on weekends, and it takes away from also our family life and our mental health needs. Reducing caseloads. I mean, overall, I think what we've heard is that unfortunately we still have a problem with making sure that we have manageable caseloads that are going to support students while also making it doable for what we are asked to do. And then increasing pay, because again, 3 days is a great start, but we are working for more than 3 days. Some of us track our time outside. I'm already at 7, I think, and I'm probably under-reporting. I think some other people had said they were already at 10. So when we talk about that, just know we are working far more than the 3 days, even though we do appreciate the compensation. And then the next piece, Maria, I think you were going to share what future things we were going to look at.
Really just things that we've talked about before in this work group at this table and in other places, is just continuing for the department to continue to work on caseload models and structures, and then a central evaluation team for learning specialists.
All right, and so now, what? Yeah, I did have questions before, but where are you guys at? Do you have questions before we dive into language? Because obviously I want to honor anybody who might have something that they would like to ask prior to us diving into our alpha. Brooke Williams, JCA President.
I was just waiting. I'm not supposed to speak until then. So I just have a question. I didn't see anything around, this is for Maria, by the way, around caseloads. And that was something the committee was supposed to work on. And the reason I'm so concerned about this is, in our survey that we sent out, just over 64% of our SPED teachers, we're thinking about leaving the profession. So I just want to make sure that we address caseloads.
We talk about caseload workload models. We talked a little bit about the structure of it in our committee. I think it is something we still need to study. I don't know that it is something that is appropriate for the nuts and bolts at the negotiations table.
Well,
it is a high
But
interest.
you were supposed to come with recommendations. So I'm just wondering why that didn't happen. So, it was agreed upon last year. So I just wanted to address that. And then it also said in the slideshow that 90% of all licensed educator positions had been filled. But I also was wondering how many SPED educators did not return last year.
I don't have that data. I can tell you that 94% of our special related service providers and our special education teachers are filled. I don't know about the retention. I can see if I can look into that for next time.
It would be great if you could bring that next meeting, because I just feel like as we continue to address some of these issues and fix some of these things within our contract with, supporting our SPED teachers, that we can retain them and attract them. And I think both are really important, not just filling the positions and getting a warm body in there for a year or two, but keeping them within Jeffco and also making it a place that people want to work too. And I think we can do that through caseloads. And so I really want to make sure that we're addressing that issue. Thanks.
And Brooke, thanks for bringing that up, because I would probably as a group say that would be another one of our interests, is maintaining our current staffing levels and then make sure that we're filling those positions with solid educators. So thank you. All right, with that said, I'm going to turn this over.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes,
Anthea?
sorry, Amanda.
That's okay. I just wondered, with regard to the mentors and team leads, I wondered at the high school level if you could tell us, is there an instructional leader or a department chair that is assigned in the high schools from the special education department? Like English has a department chair or an instructional leader. I just wondered if high schools already had that or not.
So is this on? We do have a member of our team who's a member of OLT. And we have somebody on PBST and ALT as well.
So I haven't been in a high school for a while, but correct me if I'm wrong. Does that person, do they act as a department chair, like as the lead for your team?
Yes.
And do they provide that role? Are they expected to provide that mentorship role at all, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. At RV anyway, we're a team of 4, and 2 people are new this year. So
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. I just wondered how that was working in high schools. I had another question, and then I forgot what it was, because that happens. It was something.
I was like trying to be like, well, let us know when it,
Thank you.
okay. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Amanda, if it comes to you, let us know, but I'm going to turn this over to Christine so that she can walk us through our alpha.
Okay, time for me to remember how to do all of this. Oh my God, I did it. Okay. Okay, this should be linked in the agenda. I'm only going to call out new language. So the first new language that you see here is in 8112, acknowledging the desire for some communities of practice. I believe they already exist for speech and mental health. And so to make it a consistent opportunity across the board, we wrote this language saying that there would be quarterly communities of practice for all SPED staff. The idea is that they would be kind of held in the same practice that they are currently. So you'd be released probably one morning every quarter to go have your community of practice. We kind of wanted to mimic some of the non-contact day language, saying they should be about 20% of the day. And we also wanted to ensure that like the community of practice topics fit what the needs are of people. So SPED staff should be surveyed prior to the community of practice to make sure any professional learning targets what they need. And I think some of the really good stuff often happens when it's unstructured, so just make sure that also when we gather folks from across the district, we provide them some of that unstructured educator-driven time, so that way someone can come with a problem and talk to their colleagues about how to problem solve through it. 8113, SPED educators will be provided up to 4 additional professional learning days per year to have educator-directed, uninterrupted time to complete IDEA duties. This kind of hits at what Bev and Jennifer are talking about, just continuous time to focus on getting your IDEA duties completed. And I think that they would be, the educator would work with their principal to figure out when those days are, but they would kind of have the discretion to put them in when they need them, because sometimes your caseload's really heavy in October or November and February, and so just being able to put in those days whenever they're needed. Okay, specially designed instruction. I can name at least one place where a SPED educator, when they pull groups, is also pulling gen ed students, and that's no longer specially designed instruction. So we just want to call out that SDI is to provide services for students with disabilities and on IEPs, not an intervention for general ed students. And we going right along. Okay, special ed caseloads. We heard that there is a desire to have caseloads based on needs over numbers. And the excellent news is, I have the proposal for that. It's the same one we gave last year. So we have a caseload model that is based off of the number of minutes that a student needs, divided by the number of minutes available for instruction. It creates a ratio for the number of kids on your caseload, and then you have a workload model. In case you just didn't memorize exactly what we talked about last year, I wanted to show you all what this looked like. Thank you. I found this thing and I just decided I was going to show your numbers. They're from last year. So direct and indirect minutes. In our proposal, it also, in absence of having a central evaluation team for learning specialists, there is, for each evaluation or reevaluation, you would allocate 6 hours during the instructional day to complete the evaluation. Can't evaluate the kid outside the instructional day because you have to test them. And so this anticipated the number of evals or re-evals that they had. I think at an elementary level too, the workload number is lower to anticipate that you're going to have more initial evals at that level. Anyway, you can see here that this was their numbers last year. Jennifer had a workload number of 22, and Anthea had a workload number of 24, both of which are actually higher than their actual caseload numbers. So again, we want to kind of have a system where you have a workload number that is based upon what a kid needs. The center program teachers will case manage students that will not exceed 10 students more than 2 grade levels. And then there's also the model here for speech, motor, mental health. You don't have a caseload necessarily, so it's the number of students that you serve who receive service minutes. And then, once again, we'd just love to try to get another adapted PE teacher. And that would replace the current caseload numbers. We're maintaining the review for allocation. This is sort of, this is current language. I want to just point out that it was a list, so I've made it a list so it's easier to read. So all of these things, compensation, additional staffing, that was all current language, but I think it reads nicer in a list. We struck this language because here we are, it's this school year, and that's what we've done. Okay, and 8911, we just wanted to call out the case managers are building-based, not district-based staff, right? Like a OT shouldn't be assigned to be a case manager, especially when they come into a building and they see one person and then they leave. It's just not feasible or good for kids. 8913, we added some language here. It says, additionally, the SPED team and administration will collaboratively develop a schedule that includes a minimum of 30-minute daily SPED protected intervention time. The idea here is like when you have a schedule, often like your AMP or STEAM will have like a rotating schedule. Sometimes it can be really hard for providers to have a consistent time that they're coming in to serve kids. And so we want to have a 30-minute chunk daily that groups can be held.
And that usually affects SLPs, our mental health providers, whereas learning specialists, we set our schedules a little differently, but it unfortunately falls in those times, and maybe there's an assembly or maybe there's a special thing they're doing that day. A lot of times it happens at our STEM schools. So just know that the intention for that is really to safeguard that time, because at the end of the day, it can affect minutes and compliance, or they have to find another time to pull them. And just, again, that is what we're trying to look at and solve that problem.
Okay, and the last thing is in 1813-4, we have increased the number of additional paid workdays to 10. I want to provide a little context, which is that when we did our bargaining survey, we parsed out how many additional hours are you working above the 40-hour work week? And most SPED teachers, all SPED teachers, said at least 2 hours, if not more 5 or 6 additional hours outside of the 40-hour work week were being spent on some of those IDEA, the things you can't do during the school day. And so I love math, and if you do the math, let's just say at minimum, you spend 2 hours extra a week outside the 40-hour work week. That's 8 additional work days in a school year. And then knowing that most of our people are working more, that's why we're proposing 10, and also hoping that some of those additional things like getting 4 days at your discretion to be able to request time to do your IDA stuff during the day will also provide some additional relief. All done, questions? Amanda, call on you.
Thank you. Now that I've figured out how to turn my mic back on. I just had a couple quick questions about the very beginning, the 18112, the communities of practice and the professional learning days. I wondered about the communities of practice and your thoughts around, would that be planned by like our professional learning team, our special education team? Would that be planned by, I see that there's educator-driven collaborative time, but would educators be planning the time? Would they be delivering the professional learning? Is that all just open for interpretation? I wondered if there was any specificity that you thought around the intent.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start by answering your question with a question, because I think some of these communities of practice already exist. So like Maria, who currently plans like the existing communities of practice?
We have coordinators who pull their areas of specialty together to provide guidance, professional learning. Yeah.
Are they optional currently? Like, can teachers choose to attend them or?
Really great question, Amanda.
Sorry.
I'm going to have to phone a friend.
Okay, that's okay. I wondered if they, like, in this case, would they be required if they were being?
So I feel like, and again, I am not an SLP, I'm not a mental health provider, but like our SLP, I'll be like, do we have anybody that is one of those unique positions? Do you want to come and answer for us, my love? Because, they're like a couple hours.
Yeah, so we have monthly professional learning, and typically what ends up happening is that 1 month it's something that's required for everyone, and then this year they changed it so that the next month we had the choice to choose into different learning, and so community of practice was one of those options. There are a variety of other things, like I'm participating in a year-long like intensifying behavioral interventions kind of thing. But so as providers, we had the chance to kind of make those decisions and opt in, and community of practice is one of the options. Since I'm not in that group, I don't know what the attendance is like, and I don't know what that structure looks like, but I do know that that's, right now, community of practice is at least every other month
Is it scheduled?
for mental health.
Is it scheduled during a typical student contact day,
Yeah.
during it is during a student contact day?
It is. So we had our professional learning today, actually, here in the boardroom. And usually it's a 2-hour time frame. Today we had an extended learning because we brought in a specialist about behavior. And so she put on a longer presentation. But typically it's a 2 hours on a Thursday. That's what we do.
And I'm sorry, and that is required?
Yes, that is, the expectation is that you attend. Things happen in the realm of mental health, and sometimes people aren't able to make it, but the expectation is that you're there every month for those 2 hours.
Are there also communities of practice that happen after the workday? I feel like maybe that's like a new teacher induction thing. Okay. Okay. I think.
Yeah, and SLPs have something similar to that, so that's what I was going to speak to. So I know like our SLP has to leave early. Everyone's, like, I don't know if it's every other month, but to speak to
Perfect.
that, so yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. I just, I wasn't sure how much flexibility. Oh, please.
Sorry.
In the role of ASD center-based, we had communities of practice previously. I think my first year in the district, which was a couple years ago, it was after school often. I don't think there was a strict expectation to be there, but it was highly encouraged for that collaboration piece. And then it got switched last year to doing it on teacher work days instead, to try to boost the attendance and everything instead of after school. So I know center-based programs, at least ASD, but I'm pretty sure other center-based programs are doing it. There's nothing for just like building learning specialists at this time that I'm aware of.
Are you also attending training centrally for on non-student contact days, other than the one in August and the one in January? Or are you staying in your building and doing building-based learning on those non-contact days?
A mix of both.
Okay.
I've been
Yeah,
doing a mix
I
of
would
both.
say depending on the topics that are provided, like if it's something like we just did the 2E one just because we have students. So like it's also kind of, but quite frankly, on those days, we're like, oh my gosh, we have time to have meetings with parents. Oh my gosh, we have time to write. We have time to actually plan. So I mean, a lot of us, like maybe we'll do one, but I mean, we need that time, quite frankly.
Okay. It's my understanding that, sorry, go
I
ahead,
think
Christine.
Jennifer was going to address your
Please.
question, too.
I have not yet been able to attend a district-provided one because they're all at the same time as our building ones, and my principal won't release us.
Okay. All right. Oh, shoot. It happened again. Yeah, it's gone. That's okay. No worries. I had another question about the that's what it was. Elementary schools, it's my understanding that some elementary schools have started to provide half-day of professional learning, or rather, half-day additional planning for teams of teachers. So like the whole first grade team might have a half-day of planning once a trimester or once a quarter. Does special ed get included in that in any schools?
Not at my school, so.
They do at yours? Yeah.
Okay. For Swanson, our principal has been pretty flexible. We have not figured out a way to work it into us collaborating with grade level teams at this time. Our principal has been flexible and supportive and giving our whole SPED team like a planning, like that kind of planning time, and has done a good job of like getting subs for us and everything so that we can collaborate as a whole team, because we do have a lot of providers at our school. So it's good to have that collaboration time and also try to figure out how we can get on the same page across, like, we have a lot of mental health needs at our school, speech, that kind of stuff, and trying to get on the same page of like collaborating that way. But we haven't done it with the gen ed teachers.
Is it approximately like monthly, quarterly, once a semester, once a trimester? Once a trimester?
Trimester, I would
Okay.
say.
Okay.
And I can speak to, like, with the 300 minutes we added, like, our principal has been flexible, like, we need this day to test kids or to do observations, and our school's flexible, and like, if we send an email, they're pretty, like, we're in your classroom today for observations, obviously we'll help, but, because the kids come up to you anyways while you're trying to observe, but, yeah, so I mean, there has been that opportunity, it's just, I don't think it's set, so it's a little, like, inconsistent.
Heather, were you going to add something?
I was just going to kind of say the same thing. We had that opportunity last year where our principal was doing that with grade level teams. And our team did get I think we got one. And that was helpful. I think that, I don't want to leave it up to individual principals,
Of course.
So that time is very beneficial. We got to be there as a team, so we could go over our caseload together and do all those things. And so I think, I think it's very beneficial.
Thank you. I think those were my questions for the moment. Maria, did you?
I'm thinking about 18913. I want to hear a little bit more information about this 30-minute daily protected intervention time as it's related to when student plans have required supervision prior to the start day. Just tell me a little bit more about that, please.
Yeah. Sorry, that last time I didn't. I'm Kristen Burbeck. I am the mental health provider at Swanson Elementary. And so really we're looking at this as trying to make sure that we, I guess maybe it needs its own spot, I don't know, but what I'm thinking about here is that what happens at our building, we are a title building, and our kids are super, super blessed because we have an amazing STEM lab, and we have amazing teachers to provide that to kids who get to experience things they would never experience otherwise. But they get every other week, 3 days a week, they have 45 to 50 minutes of STEM time, which then impacts our ability because we don't have protected time in the schedule. So like I can pull from science and social studies 30 minutes once a week, but when they have STEM, our schedules get shifted, and with 40 plus kids on my caseload, it's very, very challenging. And so I think when we were looking at this and thinking about with admin and planning for supervision and coverage, additionally like planning where can we pull kids that isn't going to change week to week, that isn't going to impact, because this third grade classroom has STEM this week. Next week, our second round of third grade is going to have class next week. And I have 2 kids in this class and 1 kid in this class. And I need them 30 minutes once a week. So I think that that's where originally, in putting it in this line, was we're already collaborating with admin on schedules. How can we make sure this goes into master schedules so that we know a specific place? I mean, we have 7 providers in our building that I'm planning around. It's a lot to do. And I also know with admin, it's very hard. I have amazing admin, and we've had really productive conversations, but with some of the changes to curriculum and the expected amount of time of block time for doing literacy and doing math based on the curriculum we have. And then you throw in STEM, which I think is vitally important for my kids because they may never have that experience anywhere else. So I don't want to pull them out of that time. But then I'm left going, okay, well, so I can see this kid every other week when they really need me every week.
Were there any discussions around this particular language in our secondary schools?
So I had brief conversation about like secondary with just a couple of folks, and they said in secondary it's hard because for them what ends up happening is that kids who have a lot of services end up losing out on an elective. And not being a secondary provider, I don't know what potential or possible solutions would look like, because that's obviously just a very different sort of thing, but that I think also feels equally challenging. I mean, you've got kids that school is really hard, and well, guess what? Because you need to see speech and mental health and get academic services, now you don't get to have 2 electives, you get 1. Or none if you really have significant needs. And so I think just throwing this out there as a starting point to say we need to figure something out so 1, I don't have to try to change my schedule every week so that my kids can have the experiences that they deserve. And I don't know what that would look like in secondary. I just know for us that would be a very helpful place to start.
Thank you.
I'd like to piggyback off of that. We do work at the same school. We do have very impacted students, but I also would like to say that if you think about just 30 minutes daily of protected time, that equates to 150 minutes. And if we're looking at some of our students, that's enough time to meet the child's IEP for sure. But then some of our more impacted students, just 30 minutes a day is not going to be enough time. So then we still have to get them from other learning opportunities and the mental health and the speech and potentially OT, PT, whatever it may be. So 30 minutes is, in the grand scheme of things of a week, not that much. And I think it should be protected because a lot of our kids, and I'm speaking for my school specifically, but I feel like when we talked about this, a lot of people also chimed in. A lot of our kids have more than the needs of 30 minutes a day. And so.
And Krista, I saw that you put yours up. So just to speak to that too, I think overall we have a very challenging job to make sure that we have to be compliant with those IDA pieces. And so mental health providers and our SLPs, they sometimes kind of get what's left, right? Because we have their academic schedule, and we ultimately, when we write IEPs, we want to minimize the impact to core instruction. And also we know that kids benefit from being in the classroom, with their general education peers. And so we just want to make sure that other service providers, that truly these kids who have minutes that need to be met, that they're not kind of falling to the wayside, or these kids still have those opportunities to be enriched through STEM, through electives, and through the arts, where some of them, that's truly where they shine, and they have an opportunity to develop the craft that they're probably going to be using for the rest of their lives. So we just want to also make sure that we're thinking about building those diverse learners and giving them those opportunities that they need and that we know they thrive with. So, Krista.
Okay. Piggybacking actually just on you said, I'm wondering if you guys thought through or what were your thinking in connection with Article 10, because in the scheduling and OLT, because schedules and master schedules are so intertwined and so different school to school. Like was there conversation around how that article, because that article really leverages that collaboration around a schedule, not only for the academic, but for all service providers, right? Or at least that's how I read it. I'm just wondering what discussion you guys had around how this new one and that would fit together, and or do they lie within each other?
Excellent question. Last year, we talked about this quite a bit in Article 10 because we wanted to make sure that SPED was on ALT, OLT, and then also came to the conclusion that, like, if you're in a small school and there's one learning specialist or 1.5 learning specialists, that's also hard and they can't do that. So I think Article 10 already has some sufficient language to say that you need to be making the SPED schedule, including them when those decisions are made. Doesn't mean they serve full-time on OLT if they can't. And so, yeah, I think that there's already some language there to support that. This was just a different way to call out that this is a different specific problem.
And I think to speak to that, Krista, too, when we're looking at master schedules, I think maybe having that conversation about like, oh, I don't know if we would need to. And again, remember, we're opening certain articles, but we do know if there's an impact that we could potentially put language to account for that, so referring to it. But I also want to, again, highlight the fact that SLPs and mental health providers, when they're writing their schedules, it's very different than like, right, a learning specialist per se, because they might be meeting with kids. Some services might be one-on-one, some might be push-ins, some might be small group. And again, you might have a first grade group of students who have speech needs, but they're not all the same. Some are receptive and expressive in nature, some are articulation. So I think they are also building a schedule that's also looking at what are my students' goals. And so they're kind of trying to piecemeal their schedules based off of like truly their students' needs and differentiating. Because again, I know those have been conversations with my SLP. We'll just pull them all at the same time. Well, no, I'm not going to pull a kid that's working on their articulation while I'm pulling a group that's working on their receptive or expressive language. Those are two totally different things. Just as like I wouldn't pull a kid that's working on, like decoding and phonemic awareness and phonics skills with a kid that's working on comprehension, even though they're probably going to need that at some point, because again, we're meeting kids where they're at. So I think a lot of times unfortunately our mental health providers and SLPs have kind of some piecemealing to do after the master schedule is made. So maybe what we need to look at, depending on what we settle on, is like referring to it in Article 10, just so that the OTLT does take that into account if a time needs to be held very sacredly to ensure that those pieces are being thought about and that we're not pulling kids from things that they're gonna, also not, like, I know when you pull kids from something that they want, they kind of start to resent. I don't want to go to that group because I want to be in this. So we also don't want kids to start not wanting to be with their providers, because that would also offer a challenge as well. But thank you, Krista, for thinking about that, because I think that is something that we would need to. Did you need to? Yeah.
Can I have one more question? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Claire talked about how the 30 minutes with a learning specialist. I'm wondering what was the thinking with the 30 minutes with mental health and SLP, because I know, again, groups are different. Like, I know one of my SLPs meets like every day or 4 days a week, but it's more like a 10-minute piece. So I'm just wondering, because I see the difference between learning specialists versus like SLP and mental health because group times vary. So how did we land, besides the learning specialists, on mental health and SLP for that 30 minutes as well?
Okay, I was like, okay. So where we kind of started with that is that there are services that happen with our learning specialists that are 30 minutes, and we do have, on occasion, some kids that we would be able to then use that same 30-minute chunk of time. Like if this kid's getting reading on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 times a week, I could use that same protected 30 minutes to look at and say, oh, okay, perfect, like I can do that. Also, I think having that protected time, even if like we have so many kids that do have way more than 30 minutes, and it is going to be a challenge, but that's a good place for us then to start and like collaborate as teammates to say, hey, is there any chance, you know, my kid only needs 10 minutes or my kid, his group is only 15 minutes long? Like, is there a way to pull him and like and buffer, right? So like maybe the learning specialist is able to pull 15 minutes before that protected 30 minutes starts, and they can get 30 full minutes, and then I still have 15 protected minutes to do what I need to do for those minutes. And so I think when I look at this, and we started with that 30 because most of my kids do not need more than 30 minutes once or twice a week. And so for me, it would just alleviate so much brain space. I spent 5 hours working on a schedule to show up at school, and I can pull, you know, a third to half of what I had put into my schedule because there are just so many moving parts and pieces. And it's very frustrating and very hard to want to put in the time to rework it yet again. And I know this is it's not just a me problem, and it's not just a my building problem, because we had similar issues in other buildings I've been in. You know, I've been in Jeffco for 9 years. This is not a new thing. And so I think just when we started having this conversation, I was like, where can we start so that we can at least have a conversation? So, thank you guys.
I just wanted to clarify this whole conversation. Is it fair to say that 30 minutes is more geared toward an elementary schedule? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was fair to say.
And some schools do have like an extension time where like kids are kind of, like we had that in the past and we kind of used that, and that was like a safe time when students could be pulled. And so that would either be when teachers were either giving some pretty targeted interventions, students might be progress monitored at that time, and then kids could kind of be flexibly working on like Lexia or like other types of platforms. And then that would also give like providers some time, So
like
Again.
some schools call it win time, and they already have it built in.
win time or like extension, so.
And so just to clarify, it's 30 minutes per grade level at an elementary, obviously staggered, so you're not trying to pull first graders and fifth graders and third graders all at the same time.
I think also to think out loud. At a middle school, do they have like a study hall time?
Bev, do they have a study hall at middle school? Or Richard? Or Michelle?
They
All
have
can answer.
what they, like a 30-minute thing, and it's like they have something different every day doing it. But that's when a lot of our like mental health or speech language will pull kids.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking, at high school level, there was like study hall or for freshmen, doesn't solve your problems with the upper grade level. Or we had like access, but I do want to just like elevate, sure, we might be talking about elementary, and when I, 1,000 years ago, was a special ed teacher, it did not feel good when all my kids got pulled during the electives that they really liked. And so if we can think creatively about what it looks like or might need to look like at the upper grades, I think it's still potentially worth discussing and putting out there. Oh, you were going to say words. Okay, I'll shut up now.
So all the schedules are different at the secondary level. I will tell you, so most of the middle schools have like an advisement. I think that advisement time can be used as a block of time to pool for 30 minutes. We also, we give ourselves lessons during that time, so we don't necessarily want our students with disabilities missing some of those lessons as well. But there is some flexibility within that. There's also responsive scheduling that actually, keep that up there. I may hand this over to Gretchen because she's really more of an expert at it than I am, but we do win time and it's responsive. So we can pull kids. We do it twice a week. And we're really conscientious, or we try to be, so that the kids are not being pulled for both of those days, because we also have some fun things that are happening during that time. So it's only one day that we might pull them so that they can have the second day. That's ideal.
And I want to make sure, because Maria, you had yours up. Did you need to say something? Because I saw Maria and then I saw someone. Was it Gretchen? I don't know. Or who was it? Okay.
I really just wanted to say,
And Carolyn,
this whole
sorry.
conversation highlights the complexities of scheduling around students with disabilities. And while this particular language might be specific to elementary and perhaps even a mild, moderate student in an elementary school, it's important. I learned some lessons last year going through this process. We're negotiating for our entire system. And so I don't want to lose our more complex kids. I think of our center program teachers. I think of our kids that need a significant more amount of time for intervention. And then I'm also thinking about our schools who are almost solely staffed by special education teachers at Miller and Sabaski. So I think this conversation is rich, and I appreciate the perspective. I also just think language and the intent, like getting to the intent, is really important because it has impact across the whole system, and I just don't want to lose sight of that.
And then Richard, I think I saw you up. Sorry.
Yeah,
didn't
anytime I
realize
hear
I was
middle
doing
school, I
both.
have to like chime in. And yeah, we do the responsive scheduling at Bell. It is helpful. I have like, win time to me is kind of like that 6 prep, but that's neither here nor there. But it is helpful. Like this week, I did pull students who were struggling in social studies with concepts, and one student in particular. So it is helpful to do that, to pull those kids during that time.
Carolyn, did you want to say something?
I was just going to speak to responsive scheduling. That's how we handle it at the high school level. We have 2 40-minute blocks a week, and SPED always gets priority on pulling students first.
So I guess just thinking about that, Maria, because I heard you when you said, like we need to be thoughtful about this. Maybe that's something we need to talk about in terms of thinking about how our school's doing it and how do we make sure that we're safeguarding against schools that are struggling with this. So thank you.
Can I ask one more super quick question? Is it frequent that the case managers aren't building-based and they might be itinerant?
I was going to speak to that. The only situation I can think that would happen would be a student whose only disability was speech language impairment and their only service and intervention was speech. And someone from the back has something to say about that.
Yeah.
That's the only situation that I can think
Thank
of.
you.
So.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Wolfram. I'm an itinerant teacher of the deaf, and I cover like 25 schools or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So to add to like the pulling of the kids and the times, that's what I do. I do advisement during middle school, and then I work really closely with the kids, with the high schoolers, to let them make their choice of when I pull them. And I've got 5 different high schools, 5 schedules, and it just sort of works out. But in terms of case managing, we're having a huge discussion about that on our itinerant teacher of the deaf team, because it's just not real plausible, because we just don't have eyes on those kids quite a bit. And so right now what's happening is ECSEs are they serve multiple schools as well, and they are case managers. And so we decided as a team that right now, we will be case managers for for preschool kids. But then once they get into kindergarten, the learning specialist at that point will take care of the case management of it. So from K-12, at least in the deaf department, that it's K-12 learning specialist. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, just in general, I mean, to speak like, I don't know how every school does it, but usually you kind of case manage based on the primary disability or the primary need. So if it's like a specific learning disability, it's going to be a learning specialist. If it's a speech language impairment, it's going to be like a speech pathologist. Or if it's, sometimes we have our SED students with serious emotional, they might help case manage. Because also it's dependent upon if people are at split schools, you're not going to try and load people up with like, hey, you have 20 in this school, and then they go to the other and they have 20. So there's also some conversation around making it manageable, which is a lot of times why learning specialists, we end up with 25 kids we're case managing, because schools that are smaller or that have those 0.5s or a 0.4, it's just they don't tend to give their those providers as many to case manage because they're not in the schools as much. So that's why it kind of just ends up falling on our plates. And again, everybody shares kids, but yeah, that's just kind of how it teases out, at least from what I've experienced and heard from other schools. So I don't know if secondary is any different. Or.
I mean, I would also say that if this is the general practice, then we should put it in the contract. It would clarify any situations or questions that are out there, right? So if this is largely what we're already doing, then let's put it here.
Caroline, did you, go ahead.
I have a new question if we're done with case managing. Okay. It's kind of along the same line. So when we go to your, what is it, 1874, the case loads, just wondering with the center program teachers, if this was written more with elementary in mind, will not it combine more than 2 grade levels?
I mean, we did have some elementary center teachers who wrote this, but I also think it would apply for a secondary. I mean, I hear from secondary programs that are getting bigger and bigger every single year, and it becomes really difficult for a secondary teacher to be teaching the variety of needs that are in there. So like if it's 9, 10, and then 11, 12 at a secondary level, I think that's our intent.
So for clarification, I have an AN center program with 10 students right now, 1 teacher, but 4 grades. So I would need 2 teachers per this language. Okay.
And again, we're trying to solve that problem of workload and caseload, and what we hear is that a lot of times, our center-based teachers, they might be down a para, or one para's with another student doing push-in, and then, when there's toileting, when there's issues where they need to have 2 on 1, it's also like leaving students to not have that targeted instruction. And so it's taking away a classroom teacher away from those students. And so we're trying to also solve the problem of making sure that our center-based teachers have what they need to provide that targeted instruction that our center students need. And I think also, while safeguarding against the workload and the fact that a lot of our center teachers don't get lunches, don't have a planning period, and that they are scrambling to try and make ends meet. And when you start stacking them up with multiple grade levels or multiple age groups, it's just, again, adding to the complexity of them having a targeted instruction across multiple age levels, multiple grades. They have to become those content specialists. And again, align it with IEP goals and with those specialized needs that those students have. So we're really trying to think about our center program teachers, because again, we've struggled to fill those positions and to keep those teachers. I mean, we have one at the table today who's no longer in a center program. So again, we have to do better for our center students as well, and teachers.
Krista. Yep, sorry.
Yeah, no,
That
you're fine.
first line under that center program. So if I'm understanding this, say in an elementary setting, the center program teacher could only have like K1, right? 2 grade levels, but up to 10 kids. And so in a school, an elementary that's K5, I'd have 3 center program teachers. I'd have one that would manage, just hypothetically, K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I could have 10 K1 kids, 10 2, 3 kids, 10 4, 5 kids. So I could have Total 30 ASD students with 3 teachers.
I mean, those would all be 3 separate classrooms. And I think,
But I'm not every elementary with an ASD or an SSN or SED program has 3 like, so then you have to look at the impact on the gen ed classroom, and having 10 ASD students just in 2 grade levels, that other impact is what I'm asking, like, what was the thought about that?
yeah, I mean, I think what you were describing would require them to close and combine programs, though, and more kids are coming to one school, and that's certainly not our intent. Our intent here is that often center program teachers have more than 10 kids that they're seeing, and it's very hard for them to plan for more than 2 grade levels because you're trying to make sure that your kids are getting the appropriate instruction that they need. And so it was an effort to overall reduce the amount of workload. Because too, like if you're case managing, I mean, the number of kids you see in your center program now, you might say, well, it's 15 or 18 kids. That's a lot less than a learning specialist. It's not really. But those IEPs are much more complex. They're harder to write. They're more time intensive. So our goal here overall was to bring it down. And I mean, it's certainly not to close and combine programs.
So I have a center program at my school. So that's why I was asking, because I was like, just logistically, I totally agree on the combining. It's hard to have the knowledge of multiple grades. I 100% agree. I'm just thinking logistically how this would work based on how it's written is where my question's coming from. Not that I disagree with the need and all that.
Well, and I think that's just a systemic problem like JCA is looked at, because once upon a time we had center programs in multiple buildings. I mean, our school used to have a center program. And so I think when we looked at closing a lot of them, combining a lot of them, we've taken away opportunities and programs in schools, and we don't have, again, one size does not fit all. And so we've lost a lot of our level 2s, our 3s, and so now we're kind of packing all these students together, and we're not really, again, providing that LRE, that least restrictive environment that is truly meeting students' needs. So I think in general, center program conversations, we're bringing them back and uplifting them because we have to do better to provide services for our students and make sure that we have a robust center program so that students, teachers, that can continue to thrive. Because, I mean, we're also sending a lot of kids out of the district and to different schools because we aren't being able to meet students' needs. So our goal isn't to close and to combine. Our goal is to, again, build it back up, I think, to what it was. I hopefully would love to see what it was when I first started in Jeffco, so.
One more piece of clarification on that. Knowing that a center program IEP is exponentially more intense, right? Likely they have a significant number of minutes more than a mild moderate student. The 10 students that a center program teacher might be case managing and teaching could potentially be quite a higher workload than what a learning specialist would have under this workload calculation. Is that accurate? Like, it's not this and this, right? We wouldn't have to also maintain this workload rate or calculation for center-based teachers.
They're separate. They're pulled out.
Okay, but they still might, I mean, already I think they do. If you were to compare 10 mild moderate kids and 10 center-based kids, they would already have a higher workload, but that would still continue, even under this model. Like potentially you could have 25 kids. Claire might have 25 kids. Claire is a center-based teacher, not Claire. Bev might have 25 kids.
Was.
Not anymore.
Was.
She may have had 10 center-based kids previously, but now she might have 25 mild moderate kids, and she may have still had a higher workload with 10 ASD center-based kids than 25 mild moderate who only have one goal each. That'd be crazy?
It's different.
That'd be a lot, okay.
Well, it's different. It varies depending on the kid, their needs, things like that. Like I still work at the same, Swanson has ASD. I was in their ASD program previously, and I had quite a few kids that were on my caseload that didn't have as many minutes or needs or anything as compared to other kids on my caseload. So it kind of depends. I don't know. Yeah,
Sure.
I think
Yeah,
the
you have-
peer support, it's different to me.
Okay.
And I will say, this year, so last year I was in a center program, we went from 3 teachers to 2 teachers, and I was the one that was booted out, I guess. I don't know how to describe that. And so luckily a position opened up at Swanson and I got to stay, which is great for me, and I love the team I work with. But I will say that this year my caseload feels drastically more intense than it did last year in a center program. The needs are very different. I was probably more overstimulated in the ASD program in previous years, but my schedule feels way more intense and my caseload feels way more intense than it did in the center program. And I think it's also based on like the team we created, the para support, there's a lot of other factors, but I feel way more overloaded this year than I did in the center program the last 2 years.
Thank you. That's helpful. I just wanted to compare the two side by side to see like what that might feel like. 2 more quick things. In that very first one around the additional professional learning days, based on what you've described them as, I don't think I would call them professional learning days. I think I would call them non-contact days, just for reference, and we'll blue line that back to you. No, wait, we'll red line it back because we're red. Sorry.
Yeah, we're agreeable to that. I think that I use professional learning because that's how you put it in the system. Question?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think we call them non-contact days, but yeah, you're right. You code it as a professional learning day. I know what you're talking about. And then the other thing I just wanted that finally came back to me after many minutes, maybe even an hour, when we pull the data for teachers who have left the district, specifically special education teachers, we need to be really careful because we don't always know why they left, right? Sometimes they left because they moved to Texas. Sometimes they left because they retired. Sometimes they left because they're like, no, thank you. I can't do this anymore. And so we don't exactly have 100% response rate on our post departure survey that we send. And so when we do pull that data, which we're easy to pull and happy to do it, we just have to be careful because we don't always know the why.
Going back really quickly, just to what you, that 18113, just also highlighting the fact that that's for IDA duties, because that was the big thing that we heard from the stories. Like plan time, like, you know, our Article 5, that is our 300 minute, like that 300 minutes that we've referred to in this piece, and then in Article 5 is very different. Like planning, what we see it as is for instruction. This would be for those IDA duties that would be like assessing kids, progress monitoring, doing observations, like the report piece. So I do want to make sure that that is very clear that these are 2 different entities in terms of the work that we do, because what we've heard loud and clear is that planning, we don't just put everything into one bucket because it's not going to be enough. So we just wanted to make sure that that was uplifted as well.
But you wouldn't want to also use these days to learn how to do the IDEA. Like you want to like use the full 4 days.
Yes, no, that would be more of what we would consider community of practice. Okay, you have 2 hours this day and we're going to really work on what is that golden thread. We're going to really work on what do minutes look like and how do we make sure we're writing minutes for middle school or for, you know, so that we're a little more systemic. Again, while also being very clear that students have different needs, so it's not always going to look the same. You can't just one size fits all it. But that's what we see those, just to make sure that they are very different and that the intent was community of practice would be like what we see mental health and SLPs, and then that the 4 additional days would be for more of those duty pieces that we need, that safeguarded time to ensure that we can do that federally, legally mandated piece of our job. Yep. Go ahead. And then I just want to make sure I'm not missing anyone because I'm calling names tonight.
So with those 4 days, like I have my 2 plan periods. And if I need to assess a student and my 2 plan periods align with, say, Earth Science and English 9, I really don't want to pull kids from that. And if I could have a day where somebody pays for my sub and I can pull them from their off block, that would be so much better for the kid.
For the assessment piece?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, oh, good point. So it wouldn't be a non-contact day because you would actually be in the building working potentially, but it's also educator directed. So technically, oh, good call. So you could be contacting students, but you wouldn't have to be contacting students. Maybe it's a day you use to write all of your reevals or
Right.
hold IEP meetings.
It would be a day that I would have a substitute in covering my classes.
Got it.
So that I am then able to do the observations, assessments,
Good call.
et cetera.
Good call.
Yeah, not professional learning, but a release day, you figure out how you want
I
to.
like the word release day. That makes more sense. Thank you.
Should I type, do you want me to type it right now? I think we'd be agreeable to that.
Thank you so much. Sure. I know this isn't typical. I have the perspective, I was center-based program for a few years, and now I'm itinerant. I do want to say I appreciate all the center-based teachers' work because I've done it, and it is hard. And I want to say also, be a voice for itinerant teachers, and kind of piggyback on what you said, it's still very intense for us. It's different because we're dealing with 25 teams and 25, I mean, we're writing maybe less goals, but I still feel like I'm doing 90% of the IEP that I did when I was in the center program. So I just wanted to make sure that that was being said. And also go center program teacher. So thank you for letting me talk. Yeah, I'm not going to talk anymore. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Amazing. Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you to everyone who showed up tonight and to share your stories, and thank you for your questions so that we could get to some of the heart of what we're doing this year with SPED. Thank you. Oh, geez, Bev, I was trying to close us. No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. I guess I just have to say something. So we were talking about having more paid time for the time that we spend that is like after our contract hours. I would rather not do my work after contract hours and get paid for it. I would rather do my work at school. And when we're talking about the time that we spend doing plan time and then the time we do doing special ed time, I think that should be a consistent thing, that we have like consistency every week, that we should have time that we can do that second part of our job, that it should just be built in. Because I think if we had time to do our job at work, we wouldn't need all these other like times pay us to do it at home, because I don't want to do it at home. I want to do my job at my job, and I want to have time to do it. And I don't want, people looking at, SPED like, oh, you guys just want more plan time, you want more plan time, because that's what, some other teachers think. It's like, why should SPED have more plan time? It's not more plan time that we're looking for. We want time to do our job at our job. And I don't want to have to do that like, a day here and a day there and a day here. It's like, that stuff happens like every week, We have to plan for those kids that we pull out because they have those outside minutes, and we have to plan for those kids. And then we have to go in and we have to teach, co-teach, and we have to plan with our co-teachers every day. So that's our plan time, is the co-teaching time. And then we have time to plan for our kids that we pull out, and then we have to do the testing and the writing IEPs and all that stuff that we follow, the law. And I just don't see, I don't know. I don't want to do my job outside of my hours and get paid for it. I want to do my job at my job and have my time at my job to do it. I guess, and I just had to say that. I'm sorry.
Me too, Bev.
Amen. Anyone else? Well, thank you, everyone. We do appreciate your voice, and thank you for all of you who joined us from the audience. We appreciate it as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
The
We
subject matter expertise
yeah.
is in the room.
Thank you
We
so
appreciate
much.
you. All right. So I would love to tell you that we can take that and return it, and I can be real honest with you and tell you that there is no way we can bring that right back tonight, especially with regard to the workload, the calculations and the 10 days, right? I mean, all of this has a cost, and a 94% fill rate's pretty good right now, and I have a feeling that this is going to potentially increase the need for additional learning specialists, which will reduce that 94% fill rate of educators right now. And so we're going to need to take this and take some time with it, and we're going to need to run some calculations and some staffing information in order to bring this back to you. Our hope would certainly be to bring something back to you by our next regular bargaining session. As of right now, that's scheduled for March 6th. March 6th. So the February sessions, for everyone to, just a heads up, the 2 February sessions are joint sessions with JESPA, and they are specifically for bargaining the structure of benefits and the way that we allocate the employer contribution to employees. And so that's 2 full sessions solely dedicated to that. Also, on the 6th, please know that we would intend to bring both of our interests, our articles of interest back as well, to you to present red lines for Article 14 and Article 23. And so you won't have to wait for us on those, but then we'll also it'll be our intention to bring back 18 as much as we possibly can, knowing that sometimes some of our articles impact Article 17, right, and compensation structures. And so sometimes we're not able to make decisions immediately because one thing will impact another, and unfortunately, we have to make hard decisions sometimes about how we want to spend this $5 million and that $5 million. And so just wanted to be real transparent about that. But we will commit to bringing all 3 of those on March 6th. And then for the 2 benefits sessions that we have scheduled with JESPA and JCEA as joint benefits bargaining on February 6th and February 20th. We just wanted to have a quick conversation about what that might look like, what you envision JCEA it might look like, and then we can be flexible. We have not had this conversation with JESPA yet, so we'll need to ask them as well for their input. So it will be all the teams in the room. So we'd be looking at 32-ish people on those 2 days. Did you already talk to them?
We were
Yeah.
going to talk to them tomorrow.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, surprise. So
I was going to say, yeah, like once that conversation happens tomorrow, it might be more helpful to reach out.
Yeah.
Until then, I do know that we've been working on a presentation, so we would plan to present that. And then the hope, I think, would be for some caucus and back and forth, both on that night with the language pieces, and then finishing up on February 20th if
Great.
possible.
Do you have already our benefits survey data?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
we-
wanted to make sure that that was part of the presentation, or if you wanted any input or support with that from.
No, we've looked at that data.
Okay, great. With regard to a conversation with JESPA, could you check with them on room setup, like how you would like this room set up? Thank you. Because typically, right, it looks very different in JESPA. We're 2 lines versus a square. That would be helpful.
yeah, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. We can follow up like early next week.
Yeah, that's perfect. Can you please also ask them about their intentions around dinner. So typically with JESPA, they buy their own dinner and we buy our own dinner or bring our own dinners. And so we just want to be prepared ahead of time for whatever. And we're totally amenable to district providing district, JCA providing JCEA, and JESPA providing JESPA, or any combination of those in between.
Wait, what about, or like food trucks? Can we just get a
Food trucks.
you know, up front? Like, that could be fun. So,
It could be fun. And then one other thing, we had talked offline in the Article 13 MOU committee about modifying the time that we currently have blocked on February 20th.
Right.
And I wanted to verify with you that right now we have 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I'm wondering, because specifically the majority of you are in classrooms and you have to have guest teachers, would you be amenable to modifying that to starting at 12:30 or 1 and going until 8 p.m.?
yeah, I think that was something we had discussed, and we will verify with JESPA, obviously tomorrow, but, you know, I think that a number of our members, for that reason, we're hoping that we could push it back. Because it's tough, especially with those of us that are on modified blocks, and to miss one block and not the other, it's problematic. And so, you know, if we could move it back a little bit, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I want you to know that we are very amenable to it because I am actually out at a conference all morning that morning in Loveland, and so I can make it back by noon.
By noon, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose depending on, you know, we can adjust depending on how things go on the 6th, and with the time that we think might be needed, we can talk about some solutions. But yeah, I think we would be in favor of that.
Sounds good. Let's see. Do we want to set, we don't want to set the agenda for February 6th without JESPA, so if you would work with them on that, we can be flexible with, you know, what that looks like and add to it if needed. And then do we want to set the agenda for March 6th?
I think that we'll have to reach out for you. That'll be at our next bargaining meeting as well. But I do know that it sounded like, I don't know whether the coach activity stipends, I know it was going to be in March. I don't know if that was going to be on the 6th, but it sounds like you're already going to be ready for the Article 14, Article 23, and then returning of SPED. So we'll talk to our team. There's a possibility, depending on how our meeting goes, that we could be presenting 13 and or 8.
Sounds good.
That's my thought.
Okay. All right. We will put all those together on an agenda, and we'll make that happen.
Yes.
So our final topic that I see on here is our draft communication. So Michelle graciously, we coaxed her into it over here, agreed to be the recorder. And so if everyone would go down to the first part is copied from last year. We did reiterate that we will be doing JCEA in blue and district in red when we redline back and forth. And so we just put that back in here, even though I forgot to talk about it. Sorry about that. But if you could read the Article 18 part. Michelle, when it says number 4, desire to look at student needs rather than numbers as well as title, as in Title 1? Yes. Okay. As usual, if you see any revisions that need to be made, you can make them right on there. And when you feel comfortable with the narrative, feel free to thumbs up it. Oh dear. Good catch. All right. Any other revisions? Gretchen?
I said, maybe I missed it, but I was not seeing, I felt like I was hearing, it's not just more planning, but we want planning time for instruction, and then we also want carved out time for the IDEA paperwork stuff. Am I missing it? I don't know if I saw it in here.
Yeah. Yeah, please do. Oh, I see where you were looking. I was looking down below. That makes sense. All right. Here. Thank you, Gretchen, for that edit. All right. Otherwise, Michelle, anything else? Oh, I forgot. We have stickers again this year. If you are interested in putting a sticker on your name tent, you can certainly get two. We know that Brooke doesn't follow the sticker rules and takes 53 each week.
So Brooke, by 2, you mean 5 next time?
Yes, you can have as many as you'd like next time. I am passing the stickers around just in case you'd like to stick your sticker on tonight. Otherwise, don't forget, start your theme tonight if you want a theme.
If you have your name tag from last year.
I want it recorded in the notes that Amanda said I can have as many stickers as I want.
It will be in the notes. And if you have yours from last year, you could have 2 with lots of stickers.
And maybe over the years, you just like build up a stack, and then you can build like a tower.
Right? Not yet. We are still online. And so thank you for those of you who are watching online and who have joined us in the room as our audience. We hope you have a lovely evening. And team and audience members, please drive safely, and we will see you soon.
Maria.
Hey, Maria, will you push the button? No, I got the button. She's lost.
Amanda, I think you can just push stop.